all rise up standing for Judge Jamie. This court is now in session. You may be seated.
Today, we are hearing the case of the Virginia Company of London versus Anne Laydon, or the case of the short shirting shenanigans. The bailiff will now read the charges.
Imagine, if you will, a woman in the 17th century accused of something other than witchcraft. Would she be tried fairly? Would she be tried at all? Now imagine something truly remarkable happened to that woman. She and other 17th century characters ripped from their own time and thrust into a modern trial. Would she fare better, or would she be just as guilty? Only the jury will know in the Jamestown Zone.
Anne Laydon, in her duties to sew shirts for the men of the Virginia Company of London under the leadership of Sir Thomas Dale, is hereby charged with changing the shirts willingly and wittingly, with purpose to give the men worse shirts for their good, when she unraveled fabric shirt threads from the bottom of the shirts to use as sewing thread for the completion of the shirts.
Anne Laydon, please rise. How do you plead? Not guilty. You may be seated. The prosecution will now present its case.
Our men here are working very hard to make money for the Virginia Company of London in order to have a successful colony, and they deserve to be properly clothed. The shirt is the most important item of clothing for a man. It is made of linen, a very strong thread that will not fall apart easily from work or laundry. The shirt is the only underwear between his body and the rough woolen breeches and doublet. Anne Laydon's foolish decision to shorten the shirts have made it impossible for the men to tolerate the work they had to do. And if they were not working, then the company was losing money. I'd like to present into evidence Exhibit A, the photos of a proper undershirt and the shortened shirt sewn by Anne Laydon. For my witness, I would like to call Deputy Governor Sir Thomas Dale and ask him to relate his story.
I arrived in Jamestown May 19, 1611, with supplies and new settlers for the colony to serve as the appointed marshal. However, I soon learned that Governor West and Deputy Governor Gates had left, leaving me to serve as Deputy Governor. It had only been a year since the end of the deadly starving time, and we still were not making a huge enough profit for the Virginia Company of London. We still had many problems, and I felt it necessary to strengthen the martial law Governor West had established and follow through. Anne and the other women were obligated to make shirts for the men to wear that were comfortable. Anne knowingly broke that law and how the shirts were to be made.
Thank you. I'd like to enter into evidence Exhibit B, Rule 34 from the laws divine, moral, and martial, which reads, What man or woman soever, launderer or laundress, appointed to wash the foul linen of any one laborer or soldier, or anyone else as it is their duties to do so, performing little or no other service for their allowance out of the store and daily provisions, and supply of other necessaries unto the colony, and shall from the said laborer or soldier, or anyone else of what quality whatsoever, either take anything for washing, or withhold or steal from him any such linen committed to her to wash, or to change the same willingly or wittingly, with purpose to give him worse, old, or torn linen for his good, and proof shall be made thereof, she shall be whipped for the same, and lie in prison till she make restitution of such linen withheld or changed. The prosecution rests.
Thank you. The defense may now present its case.
My client, Ann Laydon, has been unjustly accused of cheating the Virginia Company of London when they are the ones who cheated her. She was allegedly given enough fabric to complete shirts for the men, but she was not given the thread to do so. I ask you, what could she have done? She could not accuse the company of withholding from her. This was an act of self-defense. Anne knew she would not be given her daily provision of food if she did not complete the task. And she was thinking only of her unborn baby when she unraveled the necessary threads from the fabric to complete the shirts. I would like to enter into evidence Exhibit C. Excerpt from a brief declaration of the plantation of Virginia during the first 12 years when Sir Thomas Smith was governor of the company and down to this present time by the ancient planters now remaining alive in Virginia. Sir Thomas Dale, immediately upon his arrival, to add to that extremity of misery under which the colony from her infancy groaned, made and published most cruel and tyrannous laws exceeding the strictest rules of martial discipline. Many famished in holes and other poor cabins in the ground, not respected, because sickness had disabled them for labor, nor was there sufficient for them that were more able to work. Our best allowance being but 9 ounces of corrupt and putrefied meal, and half a pint of oatmeal or peas of like ill condition for each person a day. Under this tyrannous government, the colony continued in extreme slavery and misery for the space of 5 years, in which time many, whose necessities enforced the breach of those laws by the strictness and severity thereof, suffered death and other punishments. Anne, would you please come up to the stand and share your story?
Several other women and I were appointed to make shirts. If we did not do the job, then we would not receive our food provisions for the day. We were each given 6 needles full of thread to complete 1 shirt, but the Virginia Company of London did not give us enough thread. The other women, they used their own provisions of thread, but Jane Wright and I didn't have any. We didn't think we were harming anything by picking the threads from the bottom to use for sewing the shirt. We saw this as our only choice.
Thank you, Anne. You can take your seat. I would like to enter into evidence Exhibit D. 6 needles full of thread. The defense rests, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have now heard the case of the Virginia Company of London versus Ann Laydon, or the short-shirting shenanigans. After hearing the testimony and seeing the evidence presented, it is now up to you to determine whether or not Anne is guilty or innocent.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, how did you find Anne? As our cast of 17th century characters return to their own time, your conscience may weigh heavy. Either you just sentenced this poor girl to severe punishment, or you did nothing to save her. In fact, we do not know if she had the privilege of a trial at all, or what the specific charges were that were laid against her. What we do know is that 14 years after the fact, Isabel Perry testified in court that Anne Laydon and Jane Wright were whipped for their short-shirting crimes. Anne, pregnant at the time, miscarried later that night. Perhaps she would have been better off being tried in the Jamestown Zone.
The bailiff will now read the charges.
He blew it.
I blew it.
Your conscience may weigh heavy. Either you just... Nope.
Because she was thinking of her unborn baby and the nutrients it needed. Thank
Oh no, it fell out of his brain.
Vincent!
And we were still having many problems. I felt it necessary to strengthen and I'm sorry, I screwed up. To hammer it.
Stuck back.
Or you did nothing to save her.
Really? Good thing we're doing this now.